Welcome to Brown and Brilliant, the podcast where generations talk and we listen. We blend old school values with new school voices to explore the evolving culture of people of color. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and undeniably brilliant. Whether it's a Sunday dinner story or a deep dive debate, we're breaking generational cycles, reimagining tradition, and building brilliance along the way. Join us every week as we honor the past, celebrate the now, and create the future together. Concern of what other people think, like judgment from others. And that judgment could be based on, it's usually based on past experiences and what you've done in your past that cannot be changed.
Right.
It can be learned from, it can be a learning tool, it can be something to propel you to greater heights, like right now. But if I went back to days when I was immature, days I was irresponsible, days I was thoughtless, there are people who judge you for that
Oh
because
yeah.
my memory doesn't fail me. I mean, yeah, did I used to be very selfish? Yes. Did I think not only about me, but my thought process was flawed?
Hmm.
And these are the things that come from being in a dynamic where it's more about survival than anything else. And when you have that concept and you are genuine and truthful, I think that people start accepting the humanity of it
Right.
and seeing. So a story starts jumping off the pages.
So let me ask you, where do you think that came from? That beginning of
Well,
the
the beginning, as I understand it, as I reflect, is from a place of, I guess, loss is the word I like to say,
hmm
but more so like hopelessness.
starting from your childhood.
Starting from my childhood
Yeah.
because there was no structure.
Hmm.
I did notice a difference. I cannot say I was just a normal child because I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. I didn't know where my next meal was going to be. I
Hmm.
didn't know time to know where we were going to, whose house we were going to stay at, or what have you. And even the word house, like us when we lived somewhere, it was, well, this is our house. We didn't own it.
It wasn't our
It
house.
wasn't our
It was
house,
somebody else's
but
house.
the way we used the context in innocence was this is where we live, so it's
Right.
our house, so it
Right.
was our possession,
Right.
although sometimes it was temporary.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of people in the world today who can go back and reflect and relate and say, I knew that, I remember that. Yeah, we didn't own it. We was renters. We was living with auntie or uncle or grandma
Or foster care.
or foster care like we were, and
Yeah.
it was our house.
Yeah.
And it was strange, and we knew we weren't cool. We didn't have things that were brand new. We didn't go shopping for clothes.
Hmm.
Clothes were dropped off in bags, and we sorted through them and see what we could wear, what we could use, and we were proud. It felt brand new at that moment, but then when you got to school, you got laughed at and
I
ostracized.
remember that.
Yeah, maybe the pants were a little
Type
high
word.
word, tight, they were whatever, but they to us they were new.
Yeah.
But they were something that we could use, and
And that we
sometimes
didn't have before.
we didn't have, and so sometimes I wore the same thing, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row, just changing the shirt,
Hmm.
trying my best to keep them clean so I could wear them. Those are the things when I say lost, because there was no direction, there was no purpose, there was no sense of socio economic fitting in. I
Right.
wasn't part of the puzzle.
And to me, I think the biggest part of the loss was us not having mommy,
Well, not having both parents
not
because
having daddy.
because in foster care, we were moved to an area. I call it life saving for me
Oh
because
yeah.
it did change. Hillside changed my perspective because in second grade I couldn't read or write or count
Hmm.
because we hadn't been in school.
And I remember the time when I was like 3 or 4, I could read and write, and then I forgot.
Right.
And when I got back to school, I remember one day I was so excited because I was going to school, and then I wasn't. And one day I took it upon myself. I got myself ready. I got up and went to school, and I saw the kids at the gate, and they was like, "Ooh, Valerie, you in trouble?" And I got so scared, I turned around and went home. And I don't know how much time had passed in between where I hadn't gotten to school, but to me, I think deep down inside, I really wanted to be there. But it was the kids, the laughing and the
The
taunting.
ostracizing,
Yeah.
and you felt it really emphasized how much you didn't fit in.
Right.
And then for me, going to school, it wasn't even about the education. It was that I knew I was going to get something to eat.
Yeah.
You know, remember we had the snack. They give us a milk, a chocolate milk, or a milk
Yeah.
in the morning. You know, you put your head down for that. And then at lunchtime, I was looking forward to my peanut butter and jelly sandwich or that piece of fruit and the pastry or what have you, or the juice. And it might have been all I got to eat.
Um,
You know,
I was going to say, you talking about eat. I remember there were days we only ate because you showed up with cereal or a head of lettuce,
some sardines
and we made the best of
yeah,
it.
because I
Get
could,
out there and hustle with the garbage truck people.
yeah, and people, it was, so I was willing all along, if this is quote unquote the American dream, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all these cliche terms that people
Hmm.
use, but they don't really fit in real world systems and settings because there weren't a lot of people. There were people who were sympathetic.
Yeah.
And they said, look at this kid out here helping us throw garbage and give me $1. But $1 could do so much. And then bagging groceries at the supermarket, shoveling snow, mowing lawns, raking leaves,
Hmm.
anything I could do to turn a buck to help us have something. And I say us, community, because I was thinking about me and my siblings. It wasn't just saying I got it. And so
And I think that's something that we all remember.
we do, but there's so many
Maybe
people
Veronica doesn't remember as much.
because she was
She
younger,
was younger.
and then to the part because I know on Jellic Avenue she couldn't relate because I don't. If she was there, she was in the buggy. She was a
Hmm.
baby,
Hmm.
and there was so much trauma on so many levels. It wasn't just trauma for one event. Every day was trauma.
Yeah.
Just walking out the door was trauma. It was a fight. With some kid. It was, what are we gonna eat? It was, we hungry. It was like we gotta walk, 5 miles across town to go to grandpa's house
Hmm.
because we didn't have no food. So every day was trauma. And how we dealt with it, was my thing was always I have to figure it out. And it did come to a point where I remember that one of the stigmas that follow me to this day, and I'm trying to remove myself from it, was all the times where I needed somebody's help. Hey man, can you help me out with a couple of dollars? Can you do this and that? And I would get it. Here's a couple of dollars. And then if I didn't pay it back, I would avoid that person because I couldn't pay it back. Instead of having the courage and wherewithal to say, hey man, my situation is still not better. Can you just give me some time? Because I think it was more of the communication that I had.
The fear of
The fear,
communicating
right?
it.
The fear of communicating because it felt like a
A
defeat.
broken promise.
It felt like it was a broken promise, but the human condition allows us to consider, whereas the outright standards and absoluteness of some people's mentality restricts it. Oh man, I want to hear that. Where's my money?
Hmm.
We talk about $5 or $10 or whatever, and it seems petty. It seems like crackheadish, but I didn't use drugs.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was like I was hungry.
Hmm.
And as I got older, when I was an adult, I learned like, oh, go to the casino, and parlay, like the shell game, which is one of the things I'm most critical about these days because I look at people who will gladly hand somebody that has on a suit and tie $100 and say, hey, make this money. I'm going to make money for you. And they'll give it to them because they have on a suit and tie.
Hmm.
But that person's doing the same thing I'm doing. They're taking a risk that you don't have any say in.
Hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen. You may never see it again, but you got a piece of paper that says, I invested in something that you can't see, like I said, Coca-Cola stock. If you lost money in that stock and then you go to a store, you still see Coca-Cola on the shelf. You say,
For surviving.
right. So how is it that I lost money and Coca-Cola is still on the shelf?
Yeah.
And I feel like, why don't I have,
I feel that with all my stocks
right,
right
why
now.
don't I have
Just about.
$100 of Coca-Cola? Because they're not out of business.
Yeah.
Their trucks are still rolling. They're still bottling it. What do you mean?
So
That,
who's the real people making the money behind this stuff?
and it's that guy in the suit and tie because he's living in a mansion somewhere and he's well off, but he approaches us like a wolf in sheep's clothing because he has on a suit, a tie. He has some form of accreditation that we never vet.
He has credibility.
He has alleged credit, or he has projected credibility. Because remember, we don't vet him. Like, let me see your credentials.
Right.
We accept. He goes, oh, I went to Columbia. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, you look like you would. You appear to have went to Columbia because you got on a suit and tie, and wow, that's a nice shoes you got, and there's a nice car out there, and all the things that you project to me show success. And now I want to be a part of that success,
Right.
and I don't know anything else about you.
So here, I'll give you my money.
Right, I give you my money, and thus you have the Bernie Madoffs in all over the world. Me being a ghetto child, a product of poverty, a product of confusion, misdirection.